All right, welcome to Hit the Trails Mountain Biking. I'm Michael. We got Lucky over here, and today we're going to be going over his 2021 Fezzari La Sal Peak. So I'll let him talk about his bike.
All right. So I got this last July in 2021, and for those of you that don't know, Fezzari just released the new La Sal Peak, the 2.0, last week. And so this has become an antique, but it's still a great bike. This is the Fezzari La Sal Peak 1.0 in the raw carbon black. And this is the comp model. It's the cheapest model they had. And I bought it with the idea that I would systemically upgrade the components as I went along. But I've ridden it for almost a year. It's all stock still. I've had no complaints. I've taken it all over the Wasatch Front and down on the whole enchilada in Moab, and it's performed like a champ. Honestly, the only thing I have replaced so far are the grips. These are the Trail One Hell's Gates grips. Let's see, it's 1x12. It's got SRAM components, and this is the first bike I've really had that has used SRAM. In the past, I've almost exclusively used Shimano.
Have you noticed any differences?
Minor. I did like, the one thing I did like on my old bike with the Shimano was that you could lock this out, whereas SRAM is just kind of like a high tension thing. So there is a little more chain slap, I think. It could just be in my head.
Yeah, I believe that's actually the NX trailer that causes that. The upper model ones have the clutches
that
are stiffer.
Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. So again, this, like I said, this is the comp model, cheap components, but they still perform really well. And
have you noticed a difference shifting under load?
Not really.
Because that's one of the big differences that everyone always talks about is SRAM will not shift under load and Shimano will.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Again, it hasn't stood out to me. Now that you say that, though, I'm sure it'll be in my head in the next ride.
Of course.
Yeah, I'll have to pay attention to that. It's not something that's jumped out at me as a default, though. This runs DVO suspension. Again, this is the first bike I've had with DVO. We have the Topaz rear shock and the Onyx front shock. It's got a 170 millimeter travel in the front and 150 in the back.
Do you run this in the high or the low setting for the flip chip?
I run it in the high setting.
Okay.
I mean, it's a minimal difference, but again, it's probably just a mental thing for when I'm climbing. I think it makes a slight difference, and it's easier to climb, which I do a lot of. If you're using this for purely downhill, almost exclusively enduro riding, you'll probably want it in the bottom. Maxxis tires, I've got the Dissector in the back and the Assegai in the front, and that's a combination that Fezzari runs quite often. I had never heard of that combination before I bought from Fezzari, but I've actually quite enjoyed it. It's got the Dissector runs fast for the back, but it doesn't compromise on the grip. So I've liked it a lot for dirt, rock, whatever I'm riding on. I haven't had an issue with it. WTB wheel set. Basically the only thing that's carbon on this bike is the frame. Everything else is alloy, stock. Yeah.
And I know when we weighed this, your medium La Sal was 2 pounds heavier than my large Switchblade.
Was it 2 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because mine was at 32 and yours was at like 34 pounds, if I remember right.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So it is a little heavier, but again, it's got alloy components.
How is Fezzari to deal with? You know, I've heard good and bad dealing with Fezzari. So how are they for you? You were local. You picked it up from the factory. You didn't mail order it. They didn't ship it to your house. So how is it to deal with?
Right. That's a great question, because the one thing I love, this is my first Fezzari, and the one thing that I have loved about Fezzari is the community and their customer service. I have had 0 issues, but like Michael said, I'm local. I live pretty close to their main facility, and so it might be different for someone who ordered it online and Fezzari shipped it to them. Fezzari is one of the only direct-to-consumer bike producers that I know of. I think Specialized is picking it up.
Oh, there's quite a few.
Are there?
You've got Canyon, you have YT,
Oh.
you have Fezzari, you have Vitus, you have Revel, which is a pseudo mail order.
Yeah. See, and I knew that.
There's a ton of them actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the bigger brands, like I know Specialized has their Caliber, I believe is what it is, that's consumer direct, and then they have their regular lines that are sold in bike shops.
I was reading recently that they were moving more of their products to consumer direct, but that could have been a rumor. That's right, I knew there were other companies that were consumer direct, but again, for the last year I've been head deep into Fezzari land, so yeah, I really like the community with Fezzari. Customer service has been great. They have the Fezzari Ambassador program, and they're all over the place on Instagram and Facebook, so if you ever have a question, they will most likely, one of the ambassadors will most likely answer it in a forum. So yeah, I haven't had any issues with Fezzari in particular.
How did it fit you? Because I would think your build, 5.8-ish, I would think on a medium bike you would want a longer stem, and obviously you can see you need
Yeah.
a way longer dropper post, and so I would have thought Fezzari would have custom this and put a longer stem on for you and put a longer dropper post, but maybe that's just because it's the comp model. Other people may have had different experiences, but
I think it is because it's the comp model. If you go up a model, they upgrade the dropper post, and they'll upgrade the handlebars. I've always run a medium. That's the bike that fits me best. The one thing, like you said, I would extend this a little bit. That's my only complaint.
so is this, I mean, this looks really short. It looks almost like a 25, maybe a 30.
It is really short. I'd have to look up the specs. But I have had it where my knee has hit the handlebar once, and just once, you know, but it was enough to think I need to replace that sometime and extend it a little bit further. But Fezzari is known for customizing as much as they can within each level of model, and so you supply your measurements to them, and they customize it as much as they can for that price range. So other people I know have paid the big bucks for the race edition and the elite edition, and they have said that the measurements are dialed in right when they get it. So
yeah, and you got this in July, and so July of 2021, if you're not familiar, was a horrible time to buy a bike. And
tons of supply chain issues.
so this may have been the only sizes they could have gotten for a stem, and for the dropper post. So
That's very possible. And I was pretty fortunate. Because I ordered it in May, and I got it in late May, and I got it in early July. And I know a lot of people, for whatever reason, supply chains, they were waiting 6 months or more to get theirs, and I only had to wait a little less than 2 months. So I kind of lucked out on it. But again, fantastic bike. It's handled everything I've thrown at it. It's a great climber. They say it's an enduro bike, which it is, but it's also a fantastic climber. And I was actually comparing the geometry to your Switchblade, and I was surprised at how similar it was actually.
this has a much steeper seat tube and a little bit steeper head tube.
Yeah.
But with you in the high setting, mine's probably a half a degree slacker on the head tube, but your seat tube, this was like first of its kind with the 78 degree seat tube angle, where mine's closer to 76. I think it's 76 and a half when I run it in the high setting.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I was surprised at how, because that's more of a climber, supposedly. Well, it's an all-around bike.
Yeah.
But they were marketing this as a enduro bike, and so I was surprised at the similarities. But again, great climber, and also now an antique because they just came out with the new one. The new one is, I don't know if you're familiar with Fezzari, but they have the Delano as kind of their climber, and the new La Sal is basically a bulkier version of the Delano. And I've heard great things about it. I have yet to ride one, so I can't really compare it at this time.
Okay, any last thoughts with your ride? What are some of the weaknesses you've noticed? Maybe some of the fun things you've noticed as you've ridden a couple trails?
Weaknesses. Again, it was mainly my knee hitting that once kind of discouraged me a little bit. Again, this is the comp model, the cheap model, I know that. But I will say that Fezzari is known for producing like the best bang for your buck. They've won awards for it. And so if you want to get into mountain biking and you don't have a ton of cash to work with, I would definitely consider Fezzari for their customer service, best bang for the buck, and high customization. Again, no bike is completely perfect because every person is slightly different, right? And so there are things I want to change on it, and again, I'll probably systemically replace some components on it, but overall, I'm very pleased with it.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for sticking with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I know everyone says it, but it actually does help the whole YouTube universe. So we'll see you next time, and go hit the trails for us.
Let's do it.